My best thinking kept me high and drunk. I was like giving power to everybody, people, places, and things. I went into the locker room of the Chicago Bulls, 1993. Okay, I'm going in to work with a team that just won 3 NBA championships. So I had to forget myself in service to find my footing, my eye of the hurricane.
George Mumford is the world-renowned performance coach famously known as the secret weapon behind the Chicago Bulls and LA Lakers dynasties. As the author of The Mindful Athlete, he has spent decades teaching icons like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant how to access the zone through mindfulness and presence.
We're not fixed points. We have an old map to help us get through things. Those skills that helped me survive, at some point they became a hindrance for me to go to the next level.
He became the kind of man who teach Michael Jordan how to lead with clarity and presence, to help Kobe Bryant discover what it means to become a mindful assassin.
Who do you need to be to do what you want to do? You got to behave your way into proper thinking.
If you could go back and tell that younger version of yourself, what would it be to help that evolving athlete understand faster?
Well,
welcome back to the Evolving Athletes podcast. There are people who learn the game, and then there are people who become the game. People who live the work so deeply that the wisdom that they offer doesn't come from textbooks or theories, comes from being shaped, broken open, rebuilt, and refined by life itself. George Mumford is one of those rare teachers. He grew up in a house filled with chaos, but carried a quiet inner world that most children don't have access to. He felt things deeply, saw things clearly, and long before he had any tools, language, or structure to it, his gift was already forming in him, raw, intense, misunderstood. He became the kind of man who could sit in a prison and speak to the hearts of inmates, then walk into the Chicago Bulls locker room and teach Michael Jordan how to lead with clarity and presence, then help Kobe Bryant discover what it means to become a mindful assassin on the court. But the journey wasn't clean. Before the wisdom came the storm. George lived a double life. Joe College, on the outside, well-spoken, intelligent, high-achieving, addict by night, numbing pain, muting intensity, trying to outrun a mind that was actually his gift. This duality nearly killed him, and yet it's the very thing that would one day give him the insight, compassion, and spiritual backbone to guide others through their own darkness. Meditation didn't just save George's life, helped him finally feel at home. From that place, he went on to mentor Phil Jackson's Bulls and Lakers dynasties, teaching champions how to face pressure, fear, ego, and expectation, not by resisting it, but by meeting it with presence. Today's conversation is about that evolution, the inner one. It's about how a person becomes a translator of deep truths, how mentorship shapes the soul, how fear and authenticity collide, and how mindfulness, when lived, not performed, creates not just better athletes, but better humans. This is an episode about transformation, about the masterpiece within, about what it means to evolve as an athlete, a leader, and a human being. And for me, this one hits different because George is not only a master of his work, but a mentor and a great friend who has influenced my own journey in deep ways. I'm truly grateful to have him here. George, welcome to the show, my brother.
thank you, man. I don't know if I ever been introduced that graciously and that completely, man. That was pretty, that was dope, man. So thank you. So, but I think that reflects our relationship, even though we haven't known each other very long. It's always been a deep connection.
Yeah, that's, one thing you speak to right away, and it's actually a cool way to start off, is like, it's funny how certain people meet each other, right? And the energies is to take one to know one. And I think that's the one thing that I've always loved about high performance is you can right away tell who's the real deal and who's not. Like, it's like, It's that animal instinct, right? It's that thing. So I think that's something that you can right away speak to on that side, right? Of like, what is that thing? What is that thing you just know? You just know, like champions, like, you know better than anybody, man. You could walk in, Lakers, Kobe Bryant. How many people would be just intimidated by that room? And I've always said it as like an example with people in our field. Oh, you want to know if they're good or not? Drop them in the Lions den. Drop them right in the locker room with the boys, and you'll find out like this. Can they hang, or are they a fan? Oh my God, it's so nice. Or is it like, what's up? That energy?
Yes. So it's interesting because I reflect on it all the time. And in the beginning, because it's different, when I first started, it was actually 32 years ago last month when I first went into the locker room of the Chicago Bulls, 1993. And here I am. Okay, I'm going in to work with a team that just won 3 NBA championships. And the way I went into the room, the way I approached it was, how can I serve? I went in to be a service and just to see how I can help. So I had to forget myself in service to find myself, or to find my footing, my eye of the hurricane, and connect to that masterpiece within. And in those days, I used to say a little prayer before I go in there and do anything. But I knew I wasn't working for myself. I was doing God's work, if you will, or just sharing my experience, strength, and hope. And at that time, I was working at a medical center, UMass Medical Center, and in the Department of the Preventive and Behavioral Medicine. So that was cutting edge by itself. And then in the stress reduction and relaxation program. So I was already working full time, and this was something that I was doing that would be a nice thing to do, because somebody asked me, so Phil asked for me to come in and teach the guys how to deal with the stress of success. So if you think about that setup, it's like they're not struggling and saying, come on in, man, you need to help us. They're thriving. They're saying, hey, we want to go to the next level. And the next level was just teaching people, the whole person, not just a basketball player, how to thrive in life, how to deal with the stress of success. Because there's the downside to it. There's two sides to it. One side is, you get the glory and you get the rings, and no one had won had a three-peat since the Celtics in the 60s, and it was rare space. It's rare space, and people don't realize when you achieve that kind of success, you got a target on your back. But not only that, there's this tendency to be so involved in the endorsements and all of the other accolades that come with it, people coming at you wanting something, and you have a tendency to, instead of increase your development or actually keep leveling up, there's a tendency to just kind of, I want to say, plateau and just enjoy the fruits without realizing, yeah, that's good, but tomorrow I still gotta, I won a championship, but then I got a few weeks and I gotta begin all over again. So how do you do that? And it takes a certain amount of energy, but an understanding of what's required.
Yep. It's interesting, of like the understanding of what's required right there. Take us back to early childhood, because now, some of this stuff is reflective, right? You're going to look back, you think about what shaped you as a young human being, right? Coming up in the world, and, wild, right? One of 13 kids in the family and stuff like that. So just, that's a team right there, man. It's like, that's a soccer team, basketball. That's wild.
Yeah.
Like, talk about that part of where, when you look back and you start to think about, this was preparing you for what was ahead, but what's your earliest memory that you can recall coming up as an athlete, or in that way that either, sport was shaping you in that way, where it was giving you the playground and the conditions to see in life of like, all right, going down that rabbit hole to something so intense? What's like that first memory that you had of where it was like, wow, like I'm seeing this reality differently, and this is providing the conditions. The game is providing conditions to see that. What's the first thing you kind of remember where you kind of start to see that difference?
Yes. I was extremely sensitive, and I noticed one thing, that when somebody in the neighborhood moved, I was devastated. And even if they just moved down the street, or moved within walking distance or whatever, there was this feeling of sadness that I was extremely sensitive, so I could pick up stuff. So from walking down the street by myself or with my mom or whatever, and in those days, we didn't call them street people. We called them, they were winos or whatever. If I saw somebody that was on the side of the street or whatever, I felt compassion for them. I just felt sad. And I didn't know what to do with any of this stuff. And being a young boy, they would tell me to stop being so sensitive and whatnot. So I ended up just kind of shutting down that part of myself. But when I reflect on it now, it's that sensitivity, it's that ability to connect with people that helps me now. But I didn't have the training, or I didn't have anybody a, able to talk to me and say, yeah, you're sensitive, you're an empath, you pick up people's feelings. And I did that in my family. And of course, part of that came out because my father was the alcoholic. I was overly responsible or the adult child, thinking that I had it, what I did was going to affect his drinking or affect other people's happiness. I had this idea that I had the bodhisattva ideal, but I didn't have the understanding that went to it. And what I mean by bodhisattva ideal is I want to eliminate or reduce the suffering of all beings. But I wasn't necessarily looking at my suffering or that sort of thing. But going back, that's when it first started. And because of the way we grew up, I watched my friends compete. Like they played Little League. I didn't even get it. I didn't know how to go about signing up. Plus, my family didn't have the money to sign up. So I watched other people play, like Little League baseball. But then when basketball came along, I watched for a period of time. And then when I decided to engage, well, of course, we used to play, stickball and, football and all that stuff. We'd play those games. But when basketball came along, I started late playing it, but I watched it. And then when I could play, I don't remember struggling. Don't remember learning how to dribble. I just dribbled and I could do things because I was athletic. So I did things, and that's how I kind of got into it. But I really didn't have a good understanding of what I was doing. I was just going out there and just playing like what kids do. They just go out and just, they like to be in activity. They like the raises. So that, and then the sensitivity of being in a group, it's interesting because I had this friend of mine, she's a social worker, and she said, no wonder you're good at group dynamics. You grew up from one, and you're having 8 sisters and 4 brothers, and being one of the younger ones, you have to figure out stuff. And that's probably why I was more of an introvert, because I used to wake up early in the morning before everybody else got up. That was the only time I had peace. Because other than that, it was, you get in the bathroom, or the dude only had one bathroom. So that was challenging and stuff like that. So I just think that, I was just doing what I knew to do. And those skills that helped me survive, at some point, they became a hindrance for me to go to the next level. And that's what happens to us. We have we have an old map to help us get through things. And then our challenge is always to keep updating that map. Some people call it transference or, projection or whatever, but that's what happens. And that's why it requires this ability, the continuous inquiry, to be self-honest and to reflect inside and say, what am I doing? What's my intention? What do I really want? Which is one that's usually not the first question we ask.
Right.
First question is, how can I survive, or how can I relate with the environment, not knowing that I have a masterpiece inside and that it's an inside-out job.
Amen to that. Amen to that. It's fascinating. Like, what an interesting dichotomy that you lived in that way, where, like what you notice in today's world, it's so much more about individuality, right? And we're trying to get people to come back to family and team dynamics and understand the importance of it. But here you were coming up where you were right away in an environment where you were in team dynamics right off the bat.
Yes.
And then doing trying to find the individuality, which is so fascinating, right? Because most is the opposite of, you've got your family, okay, a couple people, you're hanging, and then you go out and it's like, you got to be a part of the team. Talk about that. When you look back, that struggle in the early years of like, wow, I'm in a team environment, but did you already notice? Because old school is a little bit more of that, part of it, but like, did you notice the individuality that you had and the sensitivity, how challenging that was then, of like, oh, you're too deep or you're too sensitive? Like, what did that feel like at the home, it was like this, but then in public, it was like this? Like,
well, it couldn't really, I learned that I couldn't really tell people what I really felt, or if I tried to assert myself, I got beat up or beat down, that sort of thing. So the dynamics were that out of 13 kids, I have 8 sisters and 4 brothers, and my 2 brothers were, I want to say 11 and 15 years older than me. And then I had 2 younger brothers who were 3 and 6 years younger than me. So I grew up with a bunch of sisters. Most of my sisters, I mean, that was it. I didn't have my own name. I was Linda or Evelina's brother,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And then in
Yeah.
elementary school, to make things even worse, my sisters had gone to all girls school. So I had to go to school by myself in my kindergarten. So I was always, and I remember my mother dropped me off, man, and I had no idea what I did not want to go, but once I got in there, it was fine. And then when we moved to school where we all were in the same kind of elementary school with my other sisters. But yeah, it was challenging because, like I said, but the good news was I had two friends that both had sisters, and our sisters hung together and whatnot. So it was my friends that, being able to go out and play, because not like the kids now, man. We didn't stay in the house very often. We were outside. Sometimes they have to come and tell us to get in, come in the house,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So it was my relationship with friends and sports and, being active that really helped me out. But it was what I ended up doing was I ended up just tuning in or staying in my own little fantasy because I couldn't, because the world wasn't conducive to me being who I needed to be, in terms of encouraging me to be creative, to be sensitive, to use my imagination and to talk about, getting out of survival. Like it was really more about survival and just going and showing up and not questioning authority, not questioning things. I was just trying to survive.
Yeah.
Pretty much it. But at the same time, not being able to just speak to people. So I've had situations where I spoke up. I talk about it in my book when I talked to my father about I wanted a particular type of haircut. And he perceived it as me telling him what to do, and he proceeded to just shave all my hair off. And so I had to go to my sister's wedding with a bald head, which was very humiliating. And then I remember in the second grade telling my second grade teacher, and I was like the teacher's pet. I would do all my work early. It wasn't accurate, but I wanted that approval. And when in the second grade, I told him I wanted to go to college and do this, and he told me, "You'll never go to college." I mean, that's a teacher that, you respect, and they're telling you that. And that's when I started seeing my the part of me that when you tell me I'm nice and I'm okay, but when you tell me I can't do something, you got a tiger, man. You got a problem. And it's like, I'm not looking like, dude, you don't know me. And I said, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you you're wrong. And that was my fixed way of being for a long time. Just proving people wrong instead of having the inspiration to just do it regardless of what anybody else said. But it was stuff like that. So you can see where people thought I trust or that I thought were powerful were basically telling me to shut up and you didn't know anything. That was my interpretation.
Yeah.
And, and I'm sure they both meant well. Probably thought that they were preventing me from stuff, from suffering. But that's one of the lessons, isn't it? It's the idea that no struggle, no swag. You can't protect people or be a Harrier jet parent or a helicopter parent and just try to make things easier. And that's a challenging job. It's probably the most difficult job. You're a father. I'm not. I don't have my own kids, but I have kids on the fiduciary. Custodial.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. But it's challenging to know that. Even just learning how to parent myself is really challenging. Knowing when to push and when to back off. Like, okay, I'm tired, but can I push through this? Or this fatigue. Should I really just rest?
Yeah.
And that's an ongoing thing. So those habits that I developed in this early stage, they become fixed ways of being. Right. Unless we're willing to examine our life and just really examine, okay, that worked then, but now I have to do it differently. And that's a lot of the work that I do with myself and others is saying, okay, so here's one, you're here, you're going to the other shore and you get in a canoe or rowboat and you go over to the other shore. Once you get there, we have a tendency to pull a canoe out of the water and carry it over land instead of realizing, no, we got to leave it there.
Yep.
and then we'll figure out how we're going to go from there. But it requires a letting go. It requires of letting go of the things that actually you think you are.
Right. Right. That's such a massive challenge of how much time we spend in what we think we are and who we think we are. And that's so driven by the outside, by people telling
Yes.
who we
No,
are.
it's not. It's not just the outside, because my father and my teacher, they were still in my that was in a dialogue. They still tell me you're not good enough. You know who you think you are,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that sort of thing. And I like the quote I heard. I heard it from, I forget who it was, but it goes like this: you are not what you think you are, but what you think you are.
Hmm.
You are not what you think you are, but what you think you are. So we have an idea about who we are, but then what we're thinking is who we really are.
Right. Oh, that's good.
And that's usually on the down low. That
Right. Right.
that's the subconscious. That's that inner dialogue. And that's the interesting thing, just being able to observe that and change that conversation, because now we're getting into self-image psychology and all of that stuff about,
Mhm.
you perform how you occur to yourself. If you occur to yourself as being capable of doing something, then you can do it. If you don't think you can, it's like this. It's the belief system, but it's also like you have this inner foreman that's telling you what you can and cannot do,
Right.
or
Yep.
for a person, or it could be male, female, whatever. But you have this authority, and that's it. We bring our families and our experience with us. So any of those thoughts or any of those ideas that we entertain, they have an impact on our not only our performance but on our experience. And so it's really important that we get clear about who or what is running our lives.
Yeah.
Like even within myself, is it the fear wolf that's operating, or is it the love wolf? Am I coming from lack, or am I coming from abundance? And we don't think that. Okay, I got on the love glasses. Okay, then I'm going to be open. I'll be able to listen and be present. But if I have on the fear glasses, I'm going to be preoccupied with things I'm worried about, or doubt, or even something I really want, and I don't care about anything else. I just want you to give me what I want. That all of those filter, and how can we just see things as they are right now? And that takes training. That takes an ability to forget yourself or set yourself aside, which is the amazing thing about the masterpiece within, is we have this ability for self-awareness to actually observe ourselves uncritically
Right.
in a way where we could see, okay, I think I'm a loving person, but I just was just really mean and nasty to that person. And so even though I don't think that's who I am, what was running my life, or what aspect, what sub self of me was operating there, and what you might discover is because you're coming from lack, and you're seeing that as a threat, and you're relating to it in a certain way, and realizing, oh, that's not who I am, but that wolf, that fear wolf, is the default setting.
Yeah.
So it's going to show up.
Yeah.
And so my job is, when we talk about the two wolves, the Cherokee's grandfather telling his grandson, there's two wolves fighting, ferocious battle inside of me. And for simplicity, one is fear, which represents the lack, and the other one is love, which represents abundance. And the grandson says, grandfather, which one will win? And he says, the one that I feed. So on some level, what I've had to do, not on some level, I had to understand that, and remind it every time, every thought I have, any feeling that I entertain, any behaviors that I engage in, any habits I have, they're either feeding one or the other.
Yeah.
And these seeds are planted in what they call storehouse consciousness, and they can erupt. And not only they erupt, but they become the default setting. So you're feeding the fear wolf, and so all of a sudden you're going to show up, ready to pounce, or just being in fear, that self-centered fear, versus showing up with a ease and an ability to just know no matter what happens to me, I get to choose who I am based on my core values and based on who I say I want to be or based on what I want to do. And so that's so simple, but we don't look at life like that. Normally, we don't reflect on experience and realize that, okay, I can be Hitler or Jesus Christ. Oh, okay. Depending on the energy, depending on what wolf I'm feeding, depending on how, what I am holding in mind, what I am entertaining, what I am holding in mind. So I am not what I think I am, but what I think I am. Then it's important for me to know what I'm thinking, what I'm engaging with, how I'm being. And so when I can see myself being hostile or, having ill will, because it doesn't start just with the action, it comes with the ill will. So having ill will or being afraid, now I can see, okay, that's not going to end up well. I'm going out of that space. It's going to cause more suffering and more and more stress. But the other thing is, then I'm creating a future that's going to be more like that because I am programming myself for that default setting.
Yep.
And so when we talk about training as an athlete and going to the next level, now we get into, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You got to push through and just say, okay, it doesn't matter what I feel. This is what I chose to do, and this is what the way to do it. And having said that, it's trial and error. It's not like we know we can emulate people. Sometimes that helps, but for the most part, it's like you don't know until you know. You got to go through it. But what I've learned is if the mind is right, then everything else is going to be right. If I see things clearly, my behavior is going to be clearly. But I got to not just see things clearly, and my behavior is going to be dictated by what my intentions are and what my mental and emotional tendencies are.
Yep. Yeah, no, you nailed it. And I always love the wolf analogy also. It's like, I love how you put it, fear versus love. I like to use the wild versus wise.
Yes, that'll work too.
Yeah.
But that's the reptilian brain. That's about 5 million years old, brother, versus the prefrontal cortex. And we didn't even talk about the emotional brain, the middle brain. That we get emotionally hijacked a lot.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I love what you just shared there, right? Is like, I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. And I think sometimes there's a misconception that happens in our field about like how, it all starts in the mind in terms of, okay, you can think it and you'll go there, as opposed to living it. Like, I think people, like, the nervous system is really what dictates all of it. Like, if the thinking comes from the wisdom of my body, right? My body doesn't lie. Like, I've gone through it, feelings, knowing as a sensitive person, like, I've taken people's energy. So now I can relate to it. And that's changed my perspective because, hey, I can feel what you're feeling. And that's the part I think is so hard because we label and we put things like empath, right, on people and words of like, oh, they're super sensitive, right? And I can relate to that big time on. I'm like, oh, you're too sensitive and all this stuff. But at the same time, for us, it was like, it's what helped us to align and realize, wait, I have a choice. I want to see this differently. Wow, others around me aren't going to see it that way. So now I've got to bear that responsibility to show that. Mm-hmm. Talk about that first, was the memory in adolescence with where it started to zap you, where you were like, wait, you know what? I'm not going to do that. Like the adults in the room, the authority, like, okay, you're trying to put something on me, because those are those formative years where we start to high school, to your point, right? The biological nature is we're in our minds of what we're seeing, but then we're going through the hormones, we're changing, right? So it's like, we've got to deal with that in adolescence. What's that first memory for you where you were battling of like that zapping, where you knew like, wait, no, this is the right way, but I'm still battling with reality of like trying to find the way?
Yeah, I think I was immature, or I was ignorant, I would say, to that stuff to after high school, actually, maybe even going into college, because I had a coach. If the coach told me to do something, I'll give you an example. So playing basketball as a point guard, and I had the ability to break a full court press off the dribble. And when I got to high school, my coach said he didn't want me to do that because he was afraid I was going to turn the ball over. And so I listened to him because I was totally obedient. I didn't, because that's the way I was raised. If he tells me to do something, I do it. I didn't have my own sense of saying, wait a minute, let me challenge that. I didn't have that sense of self, a strong sense of self that allowed me to challenge what was happening. So I just went along with it. And then I remember years later, it must have been the 70s, when I was watching North Carolina State with Monty Tao and David, I forget the guy's name, David Thompson. And I was saying, damn, I can't believe I let that dude talk me out of one of my strengths, man, because I didn't have the sense of self that said, okay, so when I play for you, I'm going to do that. But when I am playing, in the outside leagues and when I'm developing my game with my guys, I'm going to keep doing it. But I didn't have that. I didn't know. I didn't have that sense of self that said, no, you need to own that. I was like giving power to everybody, people, places, and things, and not realizing I had the ability to self-regulate, that I had the ability to say, no, this is what I need to do. So it took me a long time to get to that place. When I got into recovery, you have to really understand that it's not, there's all of it we call stinking thinking and ways of looking at things where you don't just say, oh, I'm going to take a drink or I'm going to go get high or whatever. It begins with your mind, and it also begins with a reflection on, if I do this, then this is going to happen. I don't want that to happen, so I'm not going to do that. So I want this to happen, so what do I need to do in order to do that? And so it wasn't until recovery, and I'm like 32 and a half years old, that I really started thinking about reflecting on my experience before, during, and after, and just really understanding. But my life was on the line because what I did before was you just ignore stuff, deny and blame, and then you end up doing what you don't want to do, getting high. And the thing about addiction is it's a progressive disease. It progresses, so you have to. Abstinence is the only way to do it, and connecting to this higher power, connecting to a different level of consciousness. So I had to learn that. So I started thinking about and investigating and exploring what's my intention, and then taking personal responsibility, not blaming people, places, and things, but really having a spiritual foundation where I realized that this is just me hip hopping, but when I align with the divine, everything's going to be fine and right on time. That's it. And so could be generosity. For me, it could be love. Okay, so what's the right thing to do? Getting into level of consciousness, so you can think about things. I think when somebody asked the Dalai Lama, what's his religion, he said kindness. Okay, when I think about, people talk about the Christ consciousness is not so much the person Christ, but the Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature, Buddha consciousness, whatever. And when I reflect on my Sunday school upbringing, it was Jesus. In my mind, Jesus taught two things, or the Christ consciousness. How you get into Christ consciousness is through loving everything and continual forgiveness. I simplify it. It's just really that simple. It's like, that's it. So if I do something, okay, when you know better, you do better. I forgive myself, but then I'm going to begin again, and then reflect on what was I thinking? How was I what were the emotions I was entertaining? What was my behavior? So for me to get clean, my best thinking kept me high and drunk. So I had to act as if I didn't know anything and just do the thing, and then you not only will you have the power, but now you understand it. You got to behave your way in the proper thinking. That's what I had to do. I had to change my way of doing things, and you mentioned that earlier. As you do it, and to me now it's like principle centered. There's principles. There's master the fundamentals, and you will be a master. It's just really that simple. So okay, if you don't drink, you won't get drunk. Oh. That's That's too crazy. But yeah, but and then you get in your head, nah, man, no, just do what I'm telling you to do, and then you'll understand it. And then once you get to the point, and then now you program that habit, or you change that habit, you transcended that habit, and realize, oh, it's really about energy, man. It's about being in the positive state of mind. It's about being in love. It's about being in compassion, generosity, seeking to understand. So really understanding who I am, how George has to do things, and know myself. And I talk about I have to know myself so I can be myself, so I can express myself, so I can share myself. And that's what it is. It's like, it's not just I begin with myself, but I don't end with myself. It's always about helping others, and that was a big part of my process. Is the best way to forget yourself, especially when you're in all the suffering and everything. You embrace it, but then you say, okay, enough of that. How can I help somebody else? And then by forgetting my stuff, setting self aside, and just focusing on how can I serve, doing the next thing, then doing that, and I actually find myself. I actually find, because what I give comes back to me. So if I want grief, I give grief. If I want love, I give love, become love, and then the love's going to come back to me, and then that becomes a consciousness or energy level, because E does equal MC squared. It's about energy. You can call it spirit, we can call it whatever you want, but it's about the energy. So the spirit and the law, I was reading something that said the spirit and the law, the letter, and the spirit and the letter of the law, whatever. And the letter is like, okay, that's the thing, but the spirit is, ooh, that's different. That's connection. That is love. That is energy, generosity, kindness, wisdom. And so those divine qualities, if I can stay in alignment with that, then I'm going to have a certain level of power to do what I need to do.
Beautiful, man. It's so cool, like how, you sliced it right into understanding the spiritual aspect, right? It's like the sprinkle, right? That kind of just, so it makes the air just smell nice.
It's a spirit. It's an animation. It's like when somebody has that zest, that joy, that enthusiasm, man, it's contagious.
It's massive. It's massive. Well, it makes me think about how, it's fascinating, right? Of when you break it down like that, spirit, law, and we're all dealing with these dualities. And when I think about the duality of today's athlete, especially, talk about your process of, when you talk about Joe College by day, right? It's like, okay, I've got this one mindset I'm in, right? And then addict by night. When I think about your story in that way of what you were developing, what people perceive, at the time, I'm sure were like, oh my God. And, the judgment, right? That'll happen. Like, I know, like, publicly people will judge of, like, they think about addict or whatever it is and say, oh, that's not me. Da, da, da. And I find it ironic and interesting of how people don't realize, when I look around at how many athletes today are exactly that, of like, you are an addict. You're still playing a game that some of you don't want to even play it. You don't even want to do that. So what you think in interpretation is one thing. It's like you're literally doing the same thing in just a different vehicle style of way. And when I see
you're attached. You can't let go. And that's the thing. As long as you keep see the thing is, and it's interesting because my first teacher, Larry Rosenberg, he used to say to me, because when I got into recovery and you identify, when you say, hi, I'm George, I'm an addict or I'm an alcoholic, whatever. And he told me, he said, dude, you can't do that. He said, because you're identifying with it.
Right.
And so that's where you're identifying. So I started saying I'm in recovery instead of saying I'm this, I'm that. And so what happened is, when I got injured in college and couldn't play basketball, I didn't know who I was, because my identity was an athlete.
Right.
But then you realize, no. And it's interesting because Bill Russell, one of the best athletes of all time, one of the most successful athletes of all time, winning 11 championships in 13 years. And he was walking around Boston, him and John Havlicek, and the guy comes up to him, and he's 6'10", so, he's not the average height.
Yeah.
Why? Said to him, are you a basketball player? And Bill Russell said no. And then when the guy left, and John said to him, Russ, why did you tell him you're not a basketball player? And this is what Russell said, because that's what I do. That's not who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the idea is to know ourselves and to realize that's a lifelong process, as well as reinventing ourselves. We can reinvent who we are in the sense of how we see ourselves, but the core is there, but we don't normally deal with the core because the core is ever changing. But I mean, like principles is like true north is true north. And so, love is love, compassion is compassion, wisdom is wisdom. And because they're principles, they're universal, they're timeless, and they're self-evident, which is really important because now we can judge, am I in alignment, am I not? So we don't progress like this, we progress like this. It's a zigzag. And so we have to keep asking ourselves, well, if I get off, how get back on, get off, get back on. That's all it is. But we don't do that. We just think we're always on it or we're always off of it. No, it's an ebb and flow, and you're learning, and it's new. Everything is new. So even though the way you did it before, you can't do it that way now because you're different. Everything else is different. So you got to be that thing. So I read somewhere where it really resonated with me. We're not fixed points. We are ever-changing events. And so once you start, now you see how you see that, then it changes your performance. That changes everything. So this is the important thing. Elite performers tend to see a crisis, and this is what happened in 1993 when I was working with the Bulls, and Michael Jordan retired because of his father's death and other things, but mainly because he was in mourning. He was grieving. And I got to the team and I said, okay, this is a crisis. And there's two meanings in a crisis. One is danger. We get that one. But there's opportunity here. So when you see it and you see the opportunity, you say, okay, so this is, is this a curse or is it a blessing? No, it's a challenge. So I said, okay, is this a roadblock or is it a stepping stone? It's a stepping stone. But elite performer, you reframe things in a way that gives you access to power and empowerment and inspiration. That's the thing. And I've been dealing with that tendency for, that belief system, at least with a client, with a person I'm helping, a friend or friends, if I call them that, since 32 years. But the reality is the science is caught up, because now the science says 90% of our long-term happiness is predicated on how the nervous system and the brain interprets experience. 90%, not 10%. So if something happens, you have the freedom and power to choose, oh, that's a stepping stone. Oh, I made a mistake. Oh, that's an opportunity. What do I need to learn and practice? That's a total different mindset. And once you do that, now you have access to power. Instead of feeling like a victim, you feel like, oh no, you bad motherfucker. You have this ability to have self-awareness and to self-regulate. That means you can decide how you're going to interpret things. You can decide what thoughts you're going to entertain, what emotions you entertain, what behaviors you're going to commit to. And because you have that, that's how you get to self-mastery. So it doesn't matter. So, and then I had to reflect on myself, man, you're a dope fiend and you're not a dope fiend. You got to do that. You can deal with anything. There's nothing you can deal with, man. Come on, man. Really? Just do that. But we forget. But then, how did I do that? It's just like, well, you just have to, you have to be yourself. You have to understand that if I'm in line with divine, everything's going to be fine and right on time. You can call it divine mind, divine timing. But what I'm really saying is true north. These are principles that like love, compassion, generosity, wisdom. Those are the things that keep us in a certain level of consciousness, of energy, of can-do-ness, if you want to call it that. And to me, that's what it's all about. And I've been doing this in each year, like this year, and doing the course, doing a 6-week study group, and I'm still focusing on the trust thing, and just really reflecting on it and going deeper and realizing, yeah, man, we can talk about the words, but it's really about a feeling, man. It's really about feeling connected to something greater than yourself. When you're in team sports, that's what I missed the most when I didn't compete, is that sense of doing something together with others, with one mind, one breath, that's a powerful thing. It's not so much about winning. Yeah, you want to win, but it's the experience of working together.
Yeah.
Being yourself, but also being part of something greater than yourself. And when you can get in a situation where you can actually be your authentic self in that process, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the intention. That's my intention, is to get people to say, okay, I another one, and how can we do this together? But we have to have certain rules for engagement that allow us to stay helping each other. And we might struggle, whatever, but at the end of the day, that's your teammate, that's your sibling. You didn't pick him, but you got to figure out how to be with him, and to be yourself in that context.
Nailed it. One of my favorites, right? Mumfordisms, right? Is like no struggle, no swag.
No struggle, no swag, no pressure, no diamonds.
That's it.
Pressure is privilege.
But what's like so powerful about that right there is that, I think one of the hardest things today for people to realize, and when we talk about that duality, is that principles, right? Like I bring up all the time of how, one of the things when we're dealing with, working with organizations or whatever it is, that we'll bring up of how, the adults in the room have the wisdom, but the players are younger, they have knowledge. And so we have to meet that together, right? So what the players are struggling with is they want to be themselves, but they can't be because the organization is telling them who they want them to be, right? Versus vice versa. The coaches, they also want to be themselves and tell the players what they're thinking exactly, but they don't want to be too honest with them because they don't want to hurt their feelings. So there's this weird dichotomy that goes on where fundamentally, I think where a lot of people miss the boat is the principles. Mm-hmm. So talk about that of there's leaders, coaches, players watch. How do you align or at least expedite or at least look for principles to start that process in your own life, to start, at least moving towards that place mentally that's going to create that spirit. But principles is, I think, where the challenge comes in, is people don't recognize that, the importance of that.
Yes. So when Phil Jackson took over for the Chicago Bulls, first thing he had to do is convince Michael to allow other people to do more. So the paradigm is, great players make people around them better, whatnot. So there's a book called Tribal Leadership, which really helps with that. So it talks about the 5 stages of leadership. And so I'm going to summarize it, and it's not their exact language, but the first stage is life sucks. Okay, so you're in reptilian brain, that's like being in, prison and gangs. Mm-hmm. Then you have my life sucks. So then you get people that commiserate about how they're victim and, people, they do the blame and denial thing. And then you get to stage 3 where I'm great and you're not. And so when Phil got to the Bulls, when he took over, it was like the Jordan years. Jordan was doing everything. And I remember I was watching a video yesterday when they were playing the Celtics, when his second year after he'd been injured, he dropped 63 points on the Celtics. And Larry Bird, being Larry Bird and being like Yoda, he's like Larry Bird, like Yoda. He said he had to be that because he didn't have no help. He said, look, he said they were that good. So he had to score. He wasn't being greedy. He almost beat us. He and he was talking about that. And so the idea is, when you think about it, that once you say, okay, so I'm great and you're not, you got to get to we're great and they're not. Then you get to life is great. And the way you go from a stage to stage is with 2 things: core values and a worthy cause. That's it. And so you're working on that. And you can see, if you watch The Last Dance, you can see once they got past they had to keep building from, you're great, I'm great, you're not, to we're great, to life is great. That's how you do 3 peats, and that's how you go through things. But the thing is, and so one of the things, and it's interesting, so I was working with this team, I don't even know if I want to say who it was, but I was working with a team, and we didn't have time to develop core values, so we used the 4 H's. Happy, healthy, humble, hungry. So, but you have to have a system. So those are like rules of engagement. So if you're going to trade for somebody or you're going to recruit somebody, if they're not in alignment with those values, they can't come in. You can't have them, but everybody has to do that. And then you have a worthy cause, and you just keep going and going. So, and they had a system, they had a format in which they played out of, and a lot of people would think that, okay, this organized stuff, it restricts me. No, within the format, there's a way of relating where you have freedom to be creative. And it's all about reads. You read it, you take what the defense gives you. There's 7 principles of a sound offense. It's based in certain principles and the way you're going to relate. So it's a philosophy as well as a process. And people never got it. And some people say, I don't want to do that. And they don't really get it. And Kobe went through that. He had it. Then when they took it away, he said, no, bring it back, because now I know where people are on the floor, and it gives me spacing and all of that. And so it's like having a system, but those core values are principles, especially when your values are principles, they don't change, and they're universal. And they're timeless. So you need that. And then once you do that, but the other thing is from the top down, because growing up in the States, in America, we have this fallacy of trickle-down economics. There's no such thing. But trickle-down leadership, yeah. You get the leadership and it trickles down, so as a leader, when I talk about leadership and working with leaders, so to be a leader, you got to be yourself. There's a book called Becoming a Leader by Warren Bennis. I read a lot of books. Just say that. I average over a book a week for the last 42 years. So to say,
Yeah.
So when you're a leader, you have to be able to really understand that you got to be yourself. So to be a leader, you got to be yourself. So as a leader, and it's interesting because I was speaking at this president's summit in Copenhagen a couple of years ago, and one of the guys there was Stephen R. Covey, Stephen Covey's son, and he wrote a book called Trust and Inspire. So when you have somebody, so you have to level them up, and this is what Michael had to do. He had this. Okay, so we had to train everybody so they can do all the basic fundamentals and whatnot, and give them more responsibility. But then now everybody had a say in it, and he used to call it the equal opportunity offense. He's funny, but and then he'd take over when he'd have to. But even in that system, he could do that. But the thing is that you have to help people grow. So it's like it's an inside out job. So each individual, because the team is as strong, and then one of Phil's one of the things we used to talk about all the time was the strength of the wolf is in the pack and the strength of the pack is in the wolf. So you need both, but you have to grow both. And everybody has to have some skin in the game. Everybody has to have a say, and everybody has to meet a certain standard and that sort of thing. But as a leader, when I work with people, I model the behavior. Then I trust and I inspire them to be who they are. So that means you got to be willing to take a hit. So one of the things Phil used to do over his career, and he used to drive text when it's crazy, is the guys would be struggling and he wouldn't call a timeout. Then he said, I'm not bailing them out. They got to figure that out. And you might lose a couple of games, but the point is personal and organizational development. And it always starts with spirit. It always starts with, we're all together. So in some cases, in that situation, and you can see it in some of the sports now, say the Lord's Prayer or whatever prayer you do before and after or whatever, but it's about connecting with something higher in yourself and just focusing on the team, focusing on how can I be of service? How can I do? What am I willing to be generous and sacrifice? Well, I don't like the word sacrifice. I like the word generosity. What am I willing to do for the highest good, for greatest good for the team, for everyone? And so it's a spiritual thing. It's in education said the spirit is the life, mind is the builder, and the physical is the result. So it's all about spirit. And that's how I got clean. I couldn't get clean without connecting to the spirit first, without having that spiritual foundation. It says that there's there's a lawfulness in the universe, and if I align myself with how things work, I'm going to be fine. That's it. And it's not personal.
Right.
Not personal. And I have to program my nervous system because it's programmed to approach what's pleasant, to avoid what's unpleasant, and to space out if it's neither. And I'm not talking about equanimity. I'm talking about indifference, where you don't really have anything you're interested in, that sort of thing. But we can program ourselves because we have self-awareness and self-regulation to get comfortable being uncomfortable, to say yes to the pleasant, the unpleasant, and the neutral. And then seeing when we're in the neutral, we can remind ourselves what are we doing, what's our intention, and why am I here on this planet Earth?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So once we do that, now you can do that. But yeah, we're going to be in that spaced out, that neutral zone where we don't want anything, and we're not trying to avoid anything. But then that's because the mind doesn't have an interest, not interested, doesn't have a target. So that curiosity, passion, and purpose is helpful when you have an intention, when you are playing intentional, when you know what the rules are. So maybe you don't know, playing hockey. I mean, you know what it is. It's like you're the goalie. It's like, okay, you may not see things, but your job is just putting your body in front of the puck and hopefully gaining control of it.
Right.
And that's your job. And so you can do all the techniques and everything you want, but at some point you just have to figure out a way to do it. And if you're playing basketball, and we should talk about it, you want middle penetration if you're on offense, if you can. And if you have direct line, just like in hockey, if you got the puck and you got direct line, you're supposed to go all the way. You just go. And if you're on defense, you got to stop the puck.
Mm-hmm.
It's really simple.
Correct.
Those principles, but you master those. You don't have to think about it. Just know your body just goes there and does that. And if you're on offense, whatever the defense takes you, they close out, you up fake and go by them. If they're playing off you jab stack and you shoot.
Yeah.
If you're a defender, high hands, you go up, see man and ball, all of that. So those little principles, they always keep you in the moment, keep you where you need to be. But and that's where, and I can't tell you. I just say make the next play. Yeah. Whatever it is, just make the next play. If you keep making plays, you're gonna be all right. Yeah. But I can't tell you what it is. You have to understand. Right. But I can. But you have to study it, and you have to watch film, and you have to know how you need to do it. Yes. How am I going to play it when they're overloading on this side on the goal? What do I need to do? How do I need to, and if they're, from a, especially when you're on the D end and you're trying to get the puck up the ice, you got to have, and so you talk about lag position, you got to have somebody who can receive it. And if you're making if it's 15 feet, man, that's a problem. Because the defenders can come in and, then now they got a turnover. So and I don't even really understand a lot. I don't know the game like a lot of people do, but I have common sense, and I know that the basic principle is, if you're one team, you want to score more goals than the other team. You're playing golf, you want to have less strokes than the other. That's all I need to know. Then the strategy to do that, and what's the mindset you need that keeps you making the next play, being able to forget whatever happened before, whether you score a goal or you get scored on, you have to let that go and then make the next thing. And life is like that. Things happen. We got to do the same thing. What's important now? Make the next play. But having your mind present and willing to commit to what is necessary, is important. And so we can talk about a lot of stuff, but really it's about, and this is what I was getting back to when I'm reflecting on trust, is you have faith, but you gotta verify it. You gotta do what you say you're going to do, man. It's like, and then you learn from it. So that's it. So there's this combination of, faith and verification, seeing if it's true, having a direct experience of it. And then now your confidence becomes conviction, because from experience. It's not something somebody told you. It's something you experienced.
Yeah. Yeah, nailed it. It opened up a portal of so many things on that side. But you know, just for the listener, I don't want to go super crazy, and we'll definitely come back on that one
Yes.
another time on that. But what's really important from a principle standpoint that I love about your life is, what you just said there, right? Of like the leading by example, showing the way, right? And making sure that's there. And that was a big change in your life of where you taking on, and I think in today's world in this piece, which would be really interesting to hear your take is, when you found meditation, it literally transformed your world. It was like, whoa, it's like you came home. Talk about that experience of how when you found it, it was like, wow, it opened up that dimension for you, right? Obviously, but then what it led into of today, because today's player, when you talk about presence, that's one of the biggest skills. Like if we're going to talk about principles and getting there, I feel like that part of meditation of that presence ability to be within yourself and just pause and just hold that space allows you to go to that spot to then recognize these ideas of principles on it. So talk about your take and your perspective
Yeah.
on that experience.
I had chronic pain. It was a chronic pain, and nothing was working. And being in recovery, taking pain meds wasn't the first process because my nervous system doesn't know the difference between legal and illegal drugs or whatever. So I had to learn how to manage the pain. And that's what I learned how to do, using awareness. I was in this program called stress management. So if you think about stress, there's two kinds of stress. There's eustress, so it's on this thing, which is positive stress. It's like, this is where I am, this is where I want to go, and I haven't to go. So that's eustress. That's a positive stress, but it still manifests in the body like distress, which is distress is like not feeling you have control, and your system is telling you that there's too much pressure, there's too much stress on you that is not. It's like it's distress. It's just something you feel like you want to get rid of, and it's not something you created. It's something it's a pressure or demand being made on you beyond your perceived resources to deal with it. And then you have this idea that people feel like, oh, you don't have any stress. Well, if you don't have any stress, then you're not alive. So there's not just eustress and distress, but there's also having too much stress and not having enough, where you're just kind of lax and you're not. So yeah, I had to learn how to do that. So then the first thing I learned was this mind-body connection, that your mind and your body are one, and your thoughts have an impact on your body, and your body has an impact on your thoughts. And so I learned how to deal with my pain because I had chronic, mostly migraine headaches, and I've had back issues. I was just thinking about it. I've been going to a chiropractor for 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah, think about it. In school, I slept on a bed board. We had a board underneath the mattress because I always had back issues. And so, and then being in recovery, then I had to learn about the mind-body process, this idea that I had this ability to be self-aware and that I could self-regulate, that I was responsible, and no matter what happens, I get to choose my reaction and my response. And so I got in this program, and they taught me about the 3 C's. I am committed to my development, my growth, and I see things as challenges. And I can't control what happens to me, but I can control how I react or respond. And then this idea of reframing, seeing things in ways that allow me to have access to self-agency. And that was it. And so I got into it. And so me being a recovering perfectionist, they gave me a syllabus of some other books, because what it did, it taught me that, okay, you have to own your health. You have to own your wellness. And so it took it away from the doctors and put it back into me, that I was being a partner with my healthcare provider, but I had to share how I was experiencing what they were giving me in real time, inside out, so that we could work together and go through that. But it was a lifestyle change. It was changing and empowering me to take responsibility for my life, even what I thought and whatnot, but getting to that place of resilience or strong self-efficacy belief where it says, it doesn't really matter. Well, it's not that I don't care, but whatever happens to me, I get to choose. If I can create space to extend some response, and there's always space, even a little bit. If I choose, I can choose according to who I say I am and where I say I'm going. So my core values: love, curiosity, truth, integrity, selfless service, compassion, courage. So in that, if I'm violating that, or the main one is love. If I'm violating that core value, it's a problem. So I can compromise, but not violating those principles. Yeah. And so I had to learn that, oh, okay, so I relate to myself, and that changed everything. That changed everything. And then she said, okay, well, it was the person teaching me was Joan Borisenko, and it's interesting, at that time, there were only 3 psychoneuroimmunologists in the world, and she was one of them. And so she was teaching me about the mind-body process, and so here's some books you might want to try. You might want to go to this place in Barre, Massachusetts, and do a silent retreat. And I read every book on that syllabus, and then every book I read, I looked at their reading list and read books, and that's how I got into. And then I realized I needed to be intellectually stimulated as part of me waking up and realizing, okay, it's okay. And I know people see me as a jock or whatever, but no, this is reinvent myself and see myself being capable of different things. And so that's how I got into it. And then, like anything else, man, it's like Proud Mary. I don't do anything half-assed, man. I'm all in. So I started going to the retreat center, and I ended up living in the retreat center for six years. When I left corporate for 2 years, I did a lot of long-term sitting and whatnot, but a lot of practice, a lot of 12-step recovery, but a lot of it reading and going inside and getting to know who I was and trying to figure out who I wanted to be when I grow up. So, and that's an evolution that's still continuing to reinvent myself and whatnot. But that's how I got into it. And then I realized, oh, this mind-body process that, oh, okay. And it was, now I could see, and then going back to school and getting a graduate degree, counseling psychology. And I started understanding about, existentialism. And I started understanding, oh, that's why I do that. Okay. I get that. And just keep growing and growing. And that was helping me. The best stress reducer is understanding myself and the world I live in and how I am relating to the world. And even sometimes, which subpersonality, because we have these subpersonalities based on roles and whatnot, or which wolf is observing this experience. Yeah. And so that's how it started. And then it just kept growing, and going back to school really helped, and just being a seeker.
Yeah. Yep.
And so when I started working, I worked with all sorts of athletes and CEOs and organizations and Olympic athletes, everyday people's grandchildren and sons and daughters. Is like the whole gambit, man. They'd come and say, for a long time before the internet, man, it was just word of mouth, man. I have this friend of mine, Tom, he was an OSHA doctor, and his wife was turning 40, and he wanted me to give her teach her, because she was a tennis player. So he wanted me he gifted her sessions with me so I could help her tennis. And she turns around and says, no, I need you to help straighten out his office, because he has a private practice that's not out of control. So we're going to hire you to go in and help him straighten out his office, and with stuff like that. And then I have this one, my grandson, he's a golfer. He goes to, he's in high school, he's going to college. I work with her. And then this other one, my son is a fencer. It's on an Olympic team. And, that's how it went for a lot of years. Just word of mouth. People would just say, okay, George, can you help?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Well, I think one thing you pointed out there, right, was the all-in mentality, right? Of like being like, I'm in, and that commitment, that there's that principle aspect, right? Of like, I'm committed. So from that, the suffering and everything that comes with it is like, I'm in, so one of the things that you were privy to, right, was being able to have an intimate experience with the Mamba mentality. That everybody always loves and thinks about and all that. But then there's this other side of the duality, like we talked about earlier, of where so many people miss the idea of how much we influence and impact each other, right? Like coaches don't realize, lead by example. You yell at a player, but then you want them to be calm, or you want them to be respectful, but you're being disrespectful to them, but you expect their respect back. talk about the Mamba mentality and how much what people miss on that part is, because that's the thing about today's world is everyone's looking for the individual. How can I be better? And they miss the forest for the trees of realizing like, wait, but it's how can I make us better? Right.
Yeah.
And how does Mamba mentality relate in that way?
Yeah, the Mamba mentality is interesting. It's so for a lot of years, because I had the privilege of, rooming with Dr. J in college. So I feel like there's a lineage, Dr. J, MJ, and Kobe. And then I actually got to hang out with Melo a little bit, um, uh, Carmelo Anthony a little bit, and other great players. But the main thing was this idea of, there's how do I want to say it? There's a commitment to excellence. There's on some level, it's like the basketball court became kind of their oasis or their safe place. In other words, but the work ethic and the commitment to excellence and doing whatever needed to be done. So for a long time, I used to say Kobe is the closest thing to MJ. MJ is like his own thing. Of course, because I'm biased, I don't bring Jay into it, and it's different because people don't really know who he is, but a lot of the elements of this are the same in terms of commitment to your craft and being really intelligent and everybody's different, but then when Kobe broke his finger and didn't take any time off and he changed the shot and everything, I say, okay, Kobe's his own person now. It's like I don't compare, and of course, they were, Kobe would tell you, MJ took him under his wings and mentored him and all that stuff. So, but this mentality of just doing what you need to do, being all in, being full in, and in my own way, I was like that. That's probably why I resonated with him, and obviously I could help him. And that was the thing about if you think about Michael and Kobe, I would say they were probably the most open. I wouldn't say students or people that I do this work with. They were the most open because they saw the value of. So it's not for those who need it; it's for those who want it. And so everybody's different, but they were like, they just saw it as a leveling up, and and of course with MJ, I was able to explain to him why he could do things and helping him get to the next level. Same with Kobe is like just keep leveling up and whatnot. So that Mamba mentality is really about, when I talked about the 4 H's, it's like you got to be happy because you're happy before you're successful. You got to be healthy, which means you got to have your whole being, your spirit, your mind. So I say, the spiritual part of it comes first, but it's really physical, mental, and emotional, social. And you have to feed those 4 domains of being, but you got to have that you got to be humble, but you got to have that hunger. You got to want to, that's like, I want to take this to the next level. And I'll give you an example. It's interesting. I have all these connections. So my brother-in-law, Marty, he's from Philly. He grew up in West Philly. He actually played with, he calls him Dipper, who's Will Chamberlain. They grew up together. And if you see, sometimes you'll see Chamberlain in the room and the little guy behind him. That's my brother-in-law. And it's just something about, I lost my train of thought, I think. What was I talking about?
With your brother, the West Philly, when you're...
Yeah. So I was talking... So when I'm talking about the commitment level, right? Or the... So my point is that... people who are deliver. So my point is, I know what it is. I got back to it because I want to talk about Chamberlain. Yep. So Chamberlain, when they asked him about Kareem breaking his because there's many ways I can go down the track. There's a lot of good stuff here, but what I'm really talking about is when they said to Chamberlain, what do you think about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar breaking your scoring record? And Chamberlain's response was, if I knew anybody had a chance of that, I would have put it way out of sight. So he was so good, so much better, especially when, Russell retired, because Russell was his main nemesis, and they were good friends. But he's a Philly. He lived in Philly, even though he played in New York and stuff. So, um, so my point is that you have to, one way that I like to talk about it, and people say, well, isn't this antithetical competition and, all of these spiritual qualities you're talking about? I said, no, because you're competing against your previous best self. So my point is that Chamberlain didn't have anybody pushing him beyond where he was. So, he was just doing what he wanted to do. But if he was singing about legacy, and that's what I'm saying, some people are great, but they don't have the same thing where their job is just to continue to improve. You're competing against your previous best self, and let's see how far you can take it out, just for prosperity, for highest good. And so that's what I'm getting at. So that's where you have people who are really good, but when you talk about a Michael or Kobe, I even put, there's other athletes I would put in there, but somebody I've seen a lot is Tom Brady. So because he's from this area, he played here, and I've seen that excellence, and other people, I can name other people also, but mainly, so it's this idea of always looking to get better. And so that killer instinct, so that idea of being hungry and just wanting to do that and being motivated to find some way of motivating yourself. I remember Michael saying, well, Ham doesn't have a championship. We got to get a Ham championship for him. So it's that kind of, you understand, whatever it is, you have to keep motivating yourself, keep getting yourself, out of your comfort zone. And it requires that. And so your ability to tolerate discomfort, or your ability to create, where you're working and you're practicing in a way where it's love, it's joy. It's not this, it's a labor of love. It's not this labor where you're just doing it and you hate doing it. It's more like that, because there's a connection between what you're doing and where you're going, who you are, that sort of thing. So that's what I was saying about Chamberlain. Chamberlain could have taken that scoring record way out of sight, but it was like, okay, there wasn't the motivation, there wasn't that inner drive for excellence, and it didn't need to be, because he was so much better than anybody else. It was ridiculous. Right. When they changed the rules for you, like they did for him and Kareem in college, people don't realize this, that when Jay was in college, he wasn't able to dunk the ball in the game because of Kareem. Because when Kareem came into, they changed the rules, said, no, you can't, this dude is out here dominating. We can't give him any more. So you're a bad motherfucker when they change the rules for you.
Yeah.
Tiger, and stuff. But that happens sometimes. But my whole point is, with those guys, is that Mamba mentality, but it was also this idea of you modeling the behavior. And sometimes you get people who don't want to get out of their comfort zone, and you see the struggle where some people, they're just not interested in being that great. They're not. They don't have that hunger. And so that's why. So you have to get people who want to play, and I'm sure you run into people who are extremely talented, but they didn't have that killer instinct, or they didn't have that desire to take their craft to a whole other level.
Yeah,
only certain people that do that, and you see people that get better. When you think about Brady, you look at where he was when he first started, and then where he ended up, where he started, he totally changed. People don't realize how many hours in the off season a day he puts into his craft, and it's like the indirect stuff. It's not like the direct football stuff, but it's like nutrition. How he's doing strength and conditioning, his mindset, how he feeds his mindset, how he stays engaged, stays hungry. Yeah. All of those things. These are esoteric things. These are things that are, that are on the download that you wouldn't know. They're internal stuff. It's the person that connects to that. So yeah, so when you have a team and you have somebody who's modeling that behavior, then you could take it to the next level. And I'm thinking about Brady when the Patriots didn't re-sign him, and he went to Tampa. When he went to Tampa, he didn't just go as a person. He went and changed the whole culture. And some people get upset with me when I say that. But the thing is, he would take the young guys and he would teach them how to watch film and and stuff. But it was just bringing that work ethic. And I understand Michael Irving talked to him because Brady was talking to Michael because he had won multiple championships, and Michael told him that he had to stay one of the guys and stay connected. the relationships, and just everybody valuing everybody. That's what I got out of it. So to me, that was something that you had Michael, then you had Scotty, so they had the tandem that could do it, and you had Kobe, and when he was with Shaq, and then when Shaq wasn't there, and he had Powell and some of the other guys. But it's really more about modeling the behavior, trusting and inspiring. But Kobe, he ain't gonna trust you if you ain't working.
Exactly.
Derek Fisher, Robert Ory, or Fox, those guys, certain guys, he just give you a ball to because he know you're going to make the shot because he knows you're doing the work. But if you didn't, he wouldn't do that. And so everybody was different, but it comes down to these qualities we all have access to. You all now our hunger, how much we want it. That's different for everybody. And so some guys have it more than others, or some people, not just guys, but could be women, could be performers, it could be entrepreneurs, could be anybody. It could be somebody who just wants to be a great dad and a community member.
Yep.
Or great mom, just community member.
Yep. No, nailed it. It's interesting. It makes me think about how comparison is a thief of joy, of where, because we're comparing usually to others, it steals our very nature of joy. Whereas if we compare ourselves to ourselves, that Mamba mentality is at the root of it is you against you. And
that's what it is. And you can do it with love. You don't have to be nasty about it. You don't have to be mean. You can mean what you say or do, but you don't have to be mean in spirit. And once again, that's the spirit. That's the energy, the animating quality of just, because when you love something, you label for it. When you label for what you love. And this idea of when you love somebody or you love something, you extend yourself for the benefit of the development, of the growth, of the transformation. And that's what it's about. It's about transformation, not transactions. And that's why it's challenging for me to work with some sports or some situations, because the transaction is not what it's about. It's a transformation.
Yep.
And if the transaction comes out of the transformation, that's a different entity than the transaction not coming out of the transformation.
Yep. Now you nailed it. And that's one of the things that I love most about you, right? Is that you like when we talk about the transformation part and you as a vehicle and as a beacon, right? Of you have this incredible ability to translate these deep truths into language that people actually feel, like they can understand it, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you think about leadership, and that's one of the things I see is so challenging for leadership today, is realizing how they're presenting what they want to say, right? And to your point, right, having this ability to know the audience and present in a way where it's understandable, relatable, right? Is that something that, you practiced over the years and refined in terms of, hey, okay, I can get better at this? Or is that something that just came from your life experience that was just natural and I had this disposition? Because where I'm going with it is for leaders to realize how you present it stems from the principles, the you against you, and how you can get better at that. But it's your responsibility to share those truths and find a way to make it relatable and presentable to the audience, to the people you're leading. You talk about what that experience has been like.
Yeah. So when I was at the medical center, I was a director, and I had teachers that were going into hospital environments to teach, and I had administrators to work with me. So and I studied, and when I was in school, my business degree and as well as my psychology degree. I was very interested in group dynamics and that sort of thing. So the leadership style that I would be like a relational. So you have some leaders who are task oriented. It would be like a Bill Parcells or something like that. They're just task oriented. Then you have some people who are relational. And to be a leader, you got to be both. You got to meet people where they are and do it. So I was more relational. So when I had the prison project and we were going to, we had meetings, I would go and I would supervise and I would help people. But I always did with that thing, which I didn't even know about. I modeled the behavior. I trusted people and I inspired them to take risks and get out of their comfort zone. So when we were coming up with a workbook, I let them do it. And I just stayed back I just let them do it. And then when I had to say something and go in and do something, I did. But I just, even now, the people that work with me, not for me, but they're part of it. I give them a lot of leeway. I give them space. I model, trust, and inspire them to do it. And so that's something that I believed in, and I got better at it. But I was always about, because of my experience, I wanted people to be able to be themselves and create space where people could find themselves. And so that was really important for me. I didn't even know that was one of my talents, but one of the things, I could see the masterpiece in people. So when I'm relating, when I see you, I don't, yeah, you have a persona and whatnot, but it's your masterpiece. It's your divine spark that I'm able to see. And my job is to help you unlock that or own it.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So so when you do that, now in the way is, that's creativity. And the interesting thing is when you come out of that silence, that stillness, like, when you're in the zone and the flow, I spend a lot of time in flow. There's a wisdom and creativity that comes out of that silence, that inside out thing that you can't even quantify, and you don't even know how it's going to come out, but it's going to come out. And so to me, that's what, working with elite performers, that gives me an opportunity to share with them my experience, strength, and hope, but also for them to teach me where they are and how I can help them get out of it. So I like to say, if you want to learn something, you teach it. And if you want to keep something, you give it away. That's it. But yeah, you're right. It was an evolution, but it's my sensitivity and my ability I don't want anybody to go through what I went through. I want people to be able to, if they're sensitive, be sensitive. If they're frustrated, be frustrated. But also, okay, so what are you going to do with it? Now I get into Kool and the Gang. What you going to do? Are you going to get down? You got to get up to get down. Get up on it. Come on now. Get on. What you really mean is, come on, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's that simple. It's like, okay, but I usually ask people, what do you want? And then I say, who do you need to be to do what you want to do?
Yeah.
So it's like that. So it's not like I'm trying to create anything. I'm just allowing what's there to express itself.
Yeah. Bingo. Yeah. That's a beautiful part of the process, right? Is that you're allowing somebody else, you're giving them that permission to be themselves and not think they're nuts, right? Or like, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just giving them the space to just, okay, I'm going to safely allow you to be you. And that's one of the things I love the most about your leadership, right? In that way. And it reminds me of, like, one of the things that I love, a quote from a mentor that I once had, Randy Massengill, talks about how values are caught, not taught. And, talk about that part of, if through your experience, what you've seen, how crucial mentorship is in becoming an extraordinary champion-minded human being. Because, there's so many people out there that you can follow and see, but the only thing that I've at least observed through my lens, that if you don't if you don't have that person in your life, it takes one to know, like, if you don't see that modeling, I don't know how you get there by just thinking it without actually being around it and feeling it from another human being.
Yeah. Everybody, that, I do a lot of the teachings from Neville Goddard. And it's interesting. In some traditions, they don't call them, sometimes they call them teachers, but it's really good friends, or whatever. And Neville Goddard had a teacher, his name was Abdullah. He was this black Jewish guy for 5 years. He would teach them. And then, of course, there's other people. And it's not just your teachers, but it's also the association or the people you hang out with, where you can kind of talk about things and whatnot. Yeah, I mentors that helped me. Everything I got, I had some of the best mentors for all of this stuff, and yeah, just like, I just hang with, I just ask questions and talk about stuff. But mentorship is really important. And being Dr. J's roommate and seeing, he had great mentors. And I remember when Bill Russell came to speak, and him and Bill Russell ended up being friends. So it's not just having good mentors, but it's people being able to take you under the wing. I remember when Kobe was playing against Michael, and he asked Michael, how do you know when the double team is coming, and Michael would tell him. But that's that mentorship, and other people. And Kobe mentored a ton of people, male and female. He's done quite a bit for the women's game. And yeah, that's it. It's like you got to give it away to keep it. So in that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, part of that is we need to be mentors. That helps us as well as helping other people. And that's one way to feel like you're still contributing. But mentorship and having people that you can talk to and good friends and suitable conversation, that's huge, man. It's really huge. So I encourage people to do that. And to me, it's interesting because I was watching one of these programs and they were talking about science fiction becoming science fact. And they're talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi and Gandalf and Yoda and all that. And I was looking, I said, oh, that's me.
Yeah.
That's me. And now it's like, now I'm more like, I've worked with teams over the years, and now my role is more like a mentor, like an elder, to help people help themselves and to be that wise voice that can help people, talk about things that most people don't like to talk about.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the mentorship is huge, and just getting information from resources. But it's interesting because a lot of my learning comes from the people that I'm teaching. But I study a lot, I reflect, and getting with myself in that quiet place, that sanctuary, that's that place of where I can just get with myself. And Joseph Campbell referred to that. For people who don't know, Joseph Campbell was this amazing guy that was a master in talking about mythology and spirituality and philosophy and archaeology, actually. He called it creative incubation. So, and that's what's really important, is having time to just be with yourself and just listen to yourself, that deep listening, and then asking a question, and the answer is going to come. And sometimes the answer comes in the form of some person, place, or thing. Sometimes it comes as a result of just asking and letting that wisdom express itself.
Right. Yeah. Love that. I love
So
that.
you can be your own best mentor also. So you have your own AI system.
Exactly.
That's the interesting thing about the one thing AI doesn't give you is compassion and empathy.
Right. Exactly.
And so the heart, that spirit, you can't put spirit in AI. Yeah, it can tell you stuff, but
Yep.
yeah, it's nothing like a live person and that you can feel and see that, oh, just like me, this person has gone through it and they're sharing their experience with me, how I might do it.
Amen.
Or how I did it, and you take it from there. I can model the behavior, then you figure out how to make it your own.
Exactly. That nailed it. I think that's the coolest thing about it is, I like to think of AI as like a journal. It's like your personal journal, but you need people no matter what.
No, it's definitely helpful. And me being a financial analyst for all of years, I get it. It's fine. And it's like any other tool. You can use it or be used by it.
Yes.
And you can use it for good or use it for ill. You got to have really good dexterity in your hands, and you might become a neurosurgeon, or you could be a pickpocket.
Yeah.
Breaking the safes.
Yep. Yep. Great analogy. So, this has been amazing, right? Just to go through all these different parts of your journey, man. And, as we kind of start to close things up, of like, if you could go back and tell that younger version of yourself, right? The one feeling too deep, too intense, maybe too broken, right? What's that one truth that, what would it be to help that evolving athlete, like, understand faster?
Yeah. Slow motion gets you there quicker, for sure. But the thing is, you bad mofo. You got a masterpiece within, and you just got to be still and know, or be still until you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. But then asking questions. That's another, asking questions. And my father told me this. I didn't believe him because you don't. We get tired of hearing what. But he's wiser as I get older. He said, be careful with the people you hang around with. Another way of interpreting that is, If you want to go to college, you hang around with Joe College. If you want to go to jail, you hang around with the jailbirds. If you want to be wise, you hang with wise people. If you want to be peaceful, you hang with peaceful people, or you study them, you talk to them, you ask them questions, so that you can understand that, how to be that. But the main thing is just to, be yourself, man. Just, what I say, I got to know who I am and just trust my own inner greatness. Embrace or unlock that. It's what I would teach them. Embrace your greatness, find the flow, discover success.
Yeah. Amazing, man. Amazing. Well, how can people find you if they want to stay connected? Also,
well, they can just call you. You hook them up. No,
yeah, exactly.
I'm messing with you.
Remember that?
Yeah. My website is georgemumford.com, but also you can reach out, email, connect@georgemumford.com. But I have a YouTube channel, and if you Google me, there's all kinds of stuff on there. But yeah, it's just basically go to the website and, or you can go to the bookstores and you can get access to my books, The Mindful Athlete, Secrets of Pure Performance, and Unlock, Embrace Your Greatness, Find the Flow, Discover Success. And right now I'm working on the 10-year anniversary of the paperback. So next summer, my Mindful Athlete, Secrets of Pure Performance, I don't know if I keep calling that, but I'm going to have a second edition on that.
Yeah.
We have a lot more focusing on practices and stuff, but also incorporating what I've learned over the last 10 years into it.
Sick. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, man. I'm so grateful for you to, join me and the listeners here today and all that. But I love you, brother. You're an amazing human being. So fortunate to have met you in this life and continue the relation, man. And I'm so happy we're able to speak.
Yeah, well, that's your opinion. Your opinion is you're grateful for meeting me, and I'm grateful for meeting you. I think you're a bad motherfucker. I'm just saying.
Thank you.
And you get it, man, and you get it, and you understand, and you want to help people. You want to be a light. So obviously, I'm happy about that. Any opportunity I have to support you, because you have your core values are solid, man.
Appreciate that, man. No, you know how I feel. We're gonna get to it. The man. But no, for everybody else, thank you guys for being on with us today. And remember, evolving as an athlete, it's a privilege. Every day, conditions you're in, people around you, right? The challenges that you're facing are shaping you into an incredible human being long before they ever shape you into a player or an athlete. And never forget that. And so if this episode meant something to you, if George's wisdom opened something in you or helped you see yourself a little more clearly, share it with someone else who needs it. That's the main point. Again, shoot me a message or a DM and let me know how it impacted you, if in any way. And, that's how this work spreads. So one conversation, one insight, one human being at a time. So as always, play for that feeling.